to Free Coaching Friday because it's that day again.
That's right. It's Friday.
That's right. And this time, it does so happen to be Black Friday.
It is Black Friday.
Yeah. And we've already talked about Black Friday sales, so I'm not really going to talk too much about Black Friday sales.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I think one new thing that we haven't talked about is we are offering 15% off of all of the apparel in the Notia Point shop. So go and check out. We've got a few new t-shirt designs.
New
we
apparel.
have the Hacker hoodie in some new colors. So go check that out. 15% off all of our apparel. It's just available in the shop. And that 15% discount is applied automatically.
And straight up, we actually just launched new apparel today, actually.
Yeah, today.
So new apparel today, we'll show you after this. But let's get into the point of what we want to talk about today because...
Yeah. Well, first we just wanted to say to all of our U.S. Audience, happy Thanksgiving, a little late. I hope you guys all had a nice holiday, whether you were quarantining like we were or spending time with family. We hope you guys had a really nice holiday, and we were kind of offline yesterday and just enjoying the day together, and we're excited to be back at it this weekend for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So
yeah. And one thing that I want to talk about, because someone even asked, because I was, the title has to do with like being prepared for the future.
Yes.
Well, the reality, someone asked, what is the future? So one thing I want to talk about is just like modern technology and what in the world would prepare someone to be ready to work with the world's most modern, most cutting edge, the most modern stuff that even like NASA, the military, space facilities, power grids, dark sites, like what are the most cutting edge, like top of the industry for like cloud? Because let me just say this straight up. Outright, like I have had students who now work for AWS. I have students who have been like worked with like drone recon and stuff like that. I have students who work in like DevSecOps for like high-end like cloud, like you name it, you got on this long list of the types of like placements that people have found out of our programs.
And we also work with a lot of people who have started their own businesses and utilize this technology to create, their own products and that sort of thing as well.
Exactly, and that brings us to something that we are going to lean further and further toward, because one thing I've noticed is while we were focused on helping people get jobs for the longest time, it's really something that kind of was our early bread and butter, is like helping people get these high-end jobs where someone could go straight from the entry level straight into like a senior type role. And we've been doing this for so long, we're also kind of ready for a change. And so like bringing in the next year, what we finally have developed is essentially cloud technology. With people going online, doing all these other things, cloud technology is now something that just about anyone can produce and develop, because historically, and I'm going to say before 2019, so this is very, very new. This is very, very, very incredibly new, is that small technology, like computers have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. But like this right here is more powerful than what got us to the moon, right? This one device is infinitely more powerful than what got us to the moon. And as a result, the same things that we have these giant servers have then shrunk down and shrunk down and shrunk down to where now something quite literally this size is as powerful as old on-prem servers that I actually used to build cloud on. And I'm not even joking. Like, so like this right here, it has like two little servers built into it. And servers, when I worked with things at this level, with this amount of power, they were much bigger. And so regardless of what we do and what we provide, the reality is that the downsizing of computing technology is not exclusive to servers and cell phones. Honestly, just everything's shrinking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a really blunt, straightforward thing. Like...
Yeah, smaller is better.
It's, and also the other reality that we've been coming into is internet and internet connectivity. Right now, we even, like with all of the new COVID things, we're able to get like unlimited data hosting from our current location at maybe a third of the cost that we would have been able to get that from. And so what this means is that AWS, and this right here is showing a comparison of like AWS. What happens, AWS was really huge in the year 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15. It's still huge. AWS is huge. Why? Because AWS made cloud computing affordable. That's the catch. AWS made cloud computing affordable because if you wanted to have hardware, this is called hardware. This is called a bare metal asset, is what this is, because we sell cloud computing assets. And so in the past, if you wanted what's called a bare metal asset, which is like if you're building cloud.
So that's like the physical infrastructure,
Yeah.
a bare metal.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's
Bare
like
metal
the
is the
hardware.
actual physical infrastructure that you're building on. So in our case, it's Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, and whether or not you're on a website or you're using some other thing or AWS, at the bottom of AWS or at the bottom of every website, there is something called bare metal, which it just means that there's hardware at the bottom.
Right.
And AWS revolutionized technology. It really did. It really did. Because AWS made it to where you can rent assets for at the time it was so affordable to rent assets from AWS that you're out of your mind if you're going to try to host your own assets.
Right. You're essentially like leasing land on the internet.
Yeah.
AWS.
Yeah. And then something rather terrifying, honestly, because if we're going all the way back to 2011, 2012, the glory days of AWS is still outstanding. I'm not dissing on AWS at all, and I'm not going to because they're great. It's just different. All of a sudden, similar things where this right here is showing a comparison of using Raspberry Pis for hosting, for doing actual like data science, building your own cloud, all that good stuff. And you can see this is a cost comparison showing that to produce similar results, if not slightly better for certain types of hosting, a Raspberry Pi is more affordable than using AWS. Now, that then factors in things like you have to make sure that you have the right internet connection. But in 2020, if you're working an online business, you kind of need online power. And so if you don't have a good network connection and you're trying to be a developer, all these things, you probably want to have strong hosting anyways and enough internet power that's going to let you do your development, work with your cloud development, do high-end transfers and stuff like that. And the interesting reality is that you can get similar performance to AWS at a much cheaper price point, especially if you're a new business or you're not getting AWS's like top tier stuff.
So, and how do they get that? How do they get that AWS like equivalent technology for like a much cheaper price?
That's such a good point. So you don't even have to buy anything from us. Let me just talk some science real quick. 2019, all of a sudden, like computing resources, especially one of the biggest ones is Raspberry Pi. Now, there are others, not just Raspberry Pi. I had worked with like Orange Pi, there are different ones. But the thing about the Raspberry Pi is it's widely adopted, it's heavily accessible, and it's one of these things that really, instead of having to pay like monthly data rates and all of this stuff for like accessing your development and trying to do all of this stuff, if you're trying to build a brand new business, now if you already have a business and you're running a large corporation might actually have to spend something like $300,000 to transfer away from what they are currently using. So existing businesses, it's so much money to try to transition to a more price effective model. But for anyone who's trying to start like a new business these days, like someone trying to start a startup, in the past, if you're trying to start a startup with cloud hosted assets, you can start from home now. And you can get for less money than what you used to have to build on AWS, and you don't have to go get some giant server and haul this big stupid thing over and then try to like make sure that you have the stacks. Because the other thing is, it's one thing to have big, beefy, expensive servers, and it's another thing to pay the power bill for those big, beefy.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think people don't necessarily get is the power costs of even running your own large, beefy infrastructure at home for development, for launching a new service. The cost of launching new services has gone down tremendously. So much so that, like, for example, let me tell you, we had launched what we call the DevSecOps Dojo this month, November. And when we launched it, I had made all these claims. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to teach people how to build your own cloud and be able to host and all these things. And I did the first 2 trainings for what's called the roundtable. For anyone who signed up during November, got early access to our dojo stuff and trainings.
And it's not too late if you want to sign up. Sign up before November 30th. You can become a roundtable member yourself.
That's right. You can still become a roundtable member and get access to all of
It's
this
not too
information and intel. But as soon as I launched, like, how do you go from like having infrastructure to launching a service? And then this last weekend, I was like, let me just actually show you, because we host our own infrastructure, our own assets. Now we do outsource a lot of our hosting and certain things, but the thing is, like, development's development. So we did a DevSecOps sprint where we actually kind of restructured our entire backbone and then launched an entire DLC expansion within a weekend to prove that it's
PyTinker program.
Yeah. To prove that it's possible to like develop and release a new product literally in a weekend. Literally in a week. Just to prove that it's possible, where it's like our own product. And so it's like, I know for sure, beyond a doubt, that it's possible because we did it. It's ours. Like, of course, like, yeah, okay, there you go. Possible. And then not only that, but we have gotten... Oh, this thing's talking. Anyways, like, we've been able to even, like, we've been getting sales on this new DLC expansion release, even though I've been too tired to talk about it, because after doing the sprint, I've been exhausted.
I was going to say, we don't necessarily recommend putting out a product over a course of a weekend. I think we're both still recovering from that whole
It's exhausting.
But it's doable. You can do it. So I guess, Nathan, in summary, like...
Well, the most important part is, while I was developing a product, our dojo members also developed their own hosting within 2 days. So after I went from training in the dojo, then, we have our core dojo members who are very active, and not only did they build a full-on hosted VPN, but then they actually hosted each other in the full-on built VPN on literally infrastructure. It's no different from AWS. You could build the same thing in AWS and pay monthly fees, pay $30 a month depending on how much data you're using, and then the more data you use and the more people you host, then the cost goes up and up and up and up. Or you can start on your own infrastructure. I'm not even saying that you necessarily have to buy infrastructure from us, but we teach how to use it. That's the real kicker.
So yeah, if you do buy from us, we also give you a workshop that helps you understand how all of this stuff works, so that you can then go and like springboard and take that hardware and that technology and then, have that kind of cloud system that you can then infinitely scale, or essentially infinitely. I don't know if it's exactly infinitely, but you can scale it like en masse by simply adding more pies. Correct, Nathan?
Yeah, you basically just keep scaling them out. So I'm going to pull up a little Jamboard here while we're at it, just because that's the thing that we do. And I'm going to talk about just like a little visual. So I want to talk about like the secret sauce is just real simple. Let me just give you the simple answer for like, what is the future? And why is it so simple to just spin up a cloud or spin things up and spin things down and do things that just most people simply aren't capable of doing? It's really because of, and it's not that people aren't capable of doing, it's just that if anyone hasn't taken the time to learn Kubernetes or Docker, so both really, or just containerization. Docker, Kubernetes, and containerization. And I guess really I'll just add the real kicker here is containerized cloud. Kubernetes is very quickly becoming the world standard for just cloud development, cloud deployment. And really, Kubernetes is something else. The Air Force now deploys jets using Kubernetes. Edge computing is what it's called. And then, that's what Kubernetes. And then Docker makes it a lot easier to develop because Kubernetes can be a bear to develop on. But if you're just trying to just like develop stuff and rapidly deploy.
Nems is talking to us.
Yeah, we have our alerting set up. I need to like put our alerting on mute. But anyways, we built we use NEMS Linux and Pi-hole to build a SIEM, Security Information Event Management System. And it talks to us. So if you ever hear when we're doing I need to start muting it because it always talks like alert, things are failing. The world is falling apart.
Critical.
System
critical.
I guess it's literally this thing right here. This thing. I've been doing some stability testing, but anyways, the reality is that it's thanks to Kubernetes, where whether or not you start developing on a lightweight system, you can scale this lightweight system onto. I'm not gonna go and try to pick up a giant server because I have a giant server here, and then I have a more powerful system right here that's all wired and that I'm not gonna rip out of the wall. But even if you have oh gosh, I'm gonna make things fall apart, so I'll put that back down. But anyways, you get much beefier systems and start to scale them out. So what we've created, because of the way modern technology works, is here's the future of affordable cloud for anyone. It's really just kind of how it works. So we could say you have a company, right? So let's just make an example here. We have a company. I'm going to talk about this company. And this company wants to build and host services, right? That means that they're going to need admins because, how are you going to have your own technology if you don't have admins? And we have network admins, all this good stuff. So this company, if they want to develop resources, assets, all that good stuff, they have to have admins. And the admins make sure that everyone has the resources they need. They make sure that the security is fairly basic. And really, the beginning of a cybersecurity program kind of starts with the admins. And then in order to have a cloud, hosted thing or whatever you're doing, you have to have developers. So once again, Kubernetes, Docker makes it possible for it to be more affordable for this sort of company to operate and exist and do things that most people wish they could do. So you have admins, you have developers, and then finally, we have our users. Everyone else. We could just say everyone else. So we're gonna make a quick example here. Laura is going to be a developer because Laura does development for us, and I do admin stuff for us, which is, that's just what we do. I guess that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to talk about what that looks like in terms of operating a business and what we're capable of doing that other businesses are now capable of doing, and why is it that we can afford to do things that other companies simply can't afford to do and make margins that help us afford doing, continuing to do things that other companies can't afford to do? It's because, for example, I can have a system like this as an admin where I can build scalable infrastructure and whoever's doing development, so Laura over here might be coding things or however, well, I got to give her a way to code whatever's in there. So we can give her a system where maybe we don't live anywhere close to each other. Maybe we're far, far away on the other side of the planet. Mm-hmm. As a direct example, unless those who did this feel like they want to identify themselves, which feel free to, and then I'll say your names out loud if you want to identify yourselves. But we had someone from Canada and Dubai working with our model where one of them set up a hosted VPN, right? And then the one all the way in Canada, all the way from Dubai, is able to then come in as a developer and with whatever infrastructure they have, which they didn't yet have this infrastructure, which they're going to get that soon. But then they can just add these two systems to work together. And then also it means that the developer can just develop the things here while the admin makes sure everything's good and healthy and working. And there you go. You it makes it so easy to run a business. And so then...
And you don't even have to be, on the same continent, essentially.
Yeah, and so then you can just have your admins doing hosting, right? However many admins you have. And for every admin you get, anytime you have this admin get another one of these little kits, it scales what's called resources. So unlike AWS, instead of paying monthly fees and amounts for everyone to connect.
And assuming you'd be paying more and more and more as you have more and more users using more and more of their system. But in this case, you can just add your own infrastructure. You have access to the infrastructure, and
and it makes a cloud too.
Yeah.
At the same time, so everyone gets a security device. They get an asset that lets them hook into their cloud, and then all of these add infrastructure, basically like scalable assets to the cloud. So let me just add to this item right here. So we say hosting resources. So admins can just basically host resources. This is the modern world. They don't even have to have an office. This is the office is now dissolving. In the past, all of this would have been what's called in a on-prem location. But companies are selling their offices, and when companies are getting rid of their offices, what do they need? How are they going to have infrastructure when they've always had what's called on-prem infrastructure? Give your admins the infrastructure, and then set up the stuff to make sure that your admins can work with the infrastructure and maybe work with the co-location. You can always work with a co-location too. And then you give developers developer clients, which we can otherwise call thin clients, right? And so if I'm an admin, I can sit here and build a cloud that we host apps on and serve people on and make sure that everyone can do things on. And so then I can just set up this thing and set up a cloud, right? So I can set up a cloud right here, global. Set it up, everyone can use it, everyone around the world can access it. However we choose, because it's our asset, just like AWS. This would basically be an alternative to AWS, where what are you doing with AWS? You're renting. What are you doing with an asset like this? You're buying assets. It's kind of like, think about a house or rent. If you're buying a house or you're renting property, then this would be like owning, versus AWS would be like renting.
Yes.
And it's really it's that simple. Do you want to rent or do you want to own? Which do you want to do? If you want to own, get an asset. Don't rent. Or if you want to rent, I mean, you can rent, but the thing is, your assets, you don't have to make monthly payments. They can't lock you out of what's called bare metal. This is called bare metal infrastructure. Someone can't lock us out of this asset. Someone can't suddenly change their licensing agreement and change what I own it. I can do whatever I want with it, right? I can host it however I please. I just have to have the right network connections, right? So, and then meanwhile, our developers, like, if you start getting too many developers in your development environment, you can actually create a scenario where you don't have enough resources for the developers, but by giving them their actual developer clients, then once again, you can cluster these together, and then they'll operate as one big supercomputing cloud that works together, where now these are just one system that everyone accesses together. So this would just be like a remote worker's jack into the ecosystem. And whether you have 2 admins with systems like this, or 3 or 5, or who knows how many you scale to, and then maybe you have 20 developers someday on these little things, it's like getting more land. It's like getting more land with your labor, and these things are so affordable that you're not paying all the extra money that you'd be paying to AWS and all this other stuff, and expanding the connection resources that you pay to AWS. At that point, it's just up to you to just scale out your networking however you can afford and however much you feel. And then everyone else, let me show you the easiest part. Everyone else, just host them. You can host them in a VPN, so like it's like instant cybersecurity too, where you can host. You can just straight up just say everyone has to connect to a VPN or something along those lines. So essentially, just because all of this stuff exists, you can just have a VPN that's just already ready to go live, and so then whatever your admins and developers create, then you can just immediately just say, okay, everyone, you can't access company assets without going through this VPN that we've created. And then this VPN, bam, that's your company now, right? So your company now lives in a VPN, and then your VPN is hosted in a distributed cloud where you can host whatever resources you want. And then better yet, your end users can use stuff that comes from these. And then let's say that you want to scale to bigger hardware, beefier hardware. Like, this is just modern technology. So if I just go over and say, like, what next, right? So if I just literally say, what next? Let's say that the company does at some point, make a successful product, and the product's working really well. People like it. They're getting a lot of users, and then it's time to invest in something super beefy. Awesome. Now you can go ahead and you can invest in a normal standard, $2 million cloud deployment. But the thing is, you don't have to hop over to a $2 million cloud deployment until you actually have money to do so. So you can actually just start your business on affordable assets, host your business on affordable assets, scale everything you do, get more customers, add more of these or whatever, it doesn't even have to be Raspberry Pi, because really the secret sauce has nothing to do with Raspberry Pi. The secret sauce says it's all thanks to Kubernetes. Simply put, there's not a more straightforward way to put it. It's just all thanks to Kubernetes. It doesn't matter what hardware you have. Everything can scale on to something else that it wasn't even remotely related to. And because of Kubernetes, I'll just show you why that is. It's real simple. We just say you can have a Pi. Maybe you started on a Pi on a Pi cluster, right? Well, let's say that wasn't enough. Now let's say that you want to scale up to beefier servers somewhere. Who knows where? I don't know. So maybe you eventually do want to take the money that you earn when building your assets, building your business, building whatever you do, that you want to scale up to beefier servers. And then let's say that you did eventually get to the point where money's not such a problem, and now you're just like, okay, now I'm ready for something hosted. Or maybe you would like to rent some assets, who knows. So we can say rented assets, because you can own these other assets. So rented assets might be like AWS, Google Cloud, Azure. There we go. Done. Bam. Rented assets. Real simple, right? So we have the scenario that anyone can now create in the modern world, modern era, where if you're trying to start a business, it no longer necessarily makes sense to spend money that you just don't need to spend. I guess it's rather blunt that way. You can just spend all the money that you have if you feel like it. Anyone can do that. That's great and dandy and all, I guess. And really, our programs are really affordable because of the way that we've structured all this. But one of the things that I just want to outline is, if you're learning Kubernetes and you're building things with Kubernetes, companies don't need the things that they needed once upon a time just because of the way things work. People's home network connections are much faster than they historically used to be for money. And then COVID, for better or for worse, as much as we all hate the pandemic, and if someone loves it, I guess that there's someone out there who's... Anyways, that's besides the point. As much as we all have all these issues with COVID, it has already started to drive down internet costs for consumers and everyone else and businesses. And people are pulling out of offices. People are pulling out of businesses. People are moving to situations where they can have people working in these remote locations. And
yeah, like Sarah's comment that the office is nearly obsolete, I think is true, and becoming more and more so with COVID and with everything that's happening in the world.
Yeah. So offices are becoming obsolete, and because offices are becoming obsolete, it's becoming relevant for companies to figure out, if you can't have a physical office, especially one of the benefits of a physical office was having those on-prem assets, create assets for all your workers and set it up so that all your workers can just easily access stuff. And VPN technology has made it so much easier. You can do VPN with multi-factor authentication on all the VPN connections, for those who know what that is. And you'll automatically have a more secure company immediately. So like DevSecOps, I talk about DevSecOps a lot. And like Logarithm is a SecOps tool. And then I was a developer for a SecOps tool. And so it's like, okay, so I learned about SecOps because that's what I built. And then I learned about development because I did lab work and worked in a lab and all that good stuff. So anyways, like this is essentially the sec in your DevOps, if we're talking about DevSecOps. And anyone can do this sort of model. It's not unique. It's just the difference is we already have the technology kind of configured and organized and arranged for people to quite literally just deploy the Olympiad.
And it's also new that there just aren't that many companies out there that are like doing what we're doing, and assisting with people in the ways that we are with these technologies. It's pretty cutting edge. It's pretty exciting, and
it prepares you to be able to work in the cutting edge.
Exactly.
Like if you want to work at a normal old IT company where they're using the same stuff from 2012, this is probably not the space for you to go into. But if you want to get into R&D, cutting edge cloud, things like working for like NASA, SpaceX, like these big companies, all that big stuff, that's the stuff. Like that's the future, and that's pretty much how it works. So
yeah. So we're gonna keep it kind of short and sweet today because Augustus and I are exhausted, and Nathan can talk about this stuff all night if I let him. But we just wanted to remind everybody what we're doing, what we're up to. If you again join any of our paid workshops in the month of November, there's a few days left to get in on our Black Friday deals. You can get dojo membership for the rest of 2020 at no cost, free membership in the dojo for the rest of 2020. And also check out PyTinker if you are interested in any of our programs. PyTinker is a great place to start, and we just put out a huge DLC expansion that covers all of the things that we're talking about tonight, that we literally just released in the past week. So we're really excited for people to get into that workshop and start learning what we're up to and what Nathan is teaching.
Yeah, exactly that. So I just want to leave everyone with, honestly, like if you want to get a cybersecurity job or a technology job more easily than other people, you can try to compete with everyone who's known all of the other things, but let me tell you right now, if you try to compete with people on technologies that have been out for 10 to 20 years, you have to compete with people who've been doing it for 10 to 20 years. Better yet, why don't you start learning the stuff that no one knows how to do yet, that just came out, which is why we teach this. Because if you start getting into the stuff that no one knows how to do yet, that all the big companies are adopting and paying the six-figure salaries to now, that's how you get the six-figure salaries. That's how you get the easier jobs. That's how you have no competition where someone had 50... It's not possible for someone to have 15 years of experience on Kubernetes to compete with you.
Yeah.
So make your life easy. Done. Anyways, we appreciate you all. Go learn the real stuff. We teach the real stuff if you want to learn it from us. We just released a massive DLC expansion for the PyTinker program. Just to show you that, I'm going to go as soon as I show you this because, like I said, we're going to go. But if you were to just go to noshapoint.com for anyone who's just curious how we teach this stuff, if we go over to... I guess I need to go and make some tweaks to our...
Well, go to the homepage, and it's all on the homepage, too.
Yeah, it's all on the homepage. So, like, PyTinker right here, not only do you get $400 off of the PyHacker experience, which teaches you how to build tools to host in your cloud, specifically for cybersecurity, but it also teaches you how to build a bare metal asset and how to work with bare metal assets. And then, this is our developer kit. So if you want to get into this stuff, if this is what you want to do, we just make it easy to get into the high-end stuff. And really on the low end, you're looking at, if you want a job that pays about $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, but better yet, we're kind of more focused these days on helping people launch businesses where you can make way more than $100,000 a year. As you build your business. Business takes a while. Not everyone should start a business. I will tell each and every one of you, not everyone should start a business. But for those who are especially into that, this is an unusually good opportunity, so you can just learn how to... Like I said, our dojo members have launched and started hosting experimental things and will be ready to launch services like within the next month or 2 months, whenever they're feeling ready. So that's just what we teach. So anyone who really wants to get into that, we teach it, you can get into it, and I wish everyone the best for the holidays. So
have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.